My name's Mark. The original program said that, sorry, I have a very annoying habit that I tend to pace. If I pace too much, please throw something at me. So originally on the program, we were going to be, myself and Lisa were going to present this presentation. Unfortunately, she got hauled off to Cape Town. So she's asked me to speak, but she gave me one proviso: I can't discourage anybody from starting a business. So, the reason she does is she feels I'm a bit of a pessimist. I discourage everybody from doing anything innovative or developing businesses, startups, etc. But it actually isn't that. I think part of my thinking around this has always been that often we become tech before. We love our tech, we love to build stuff, but we forget that business gets done amongst people. So do you guys all know each other? Does everybody know everybody? No. Okay, so that's interesting. I think this is the theme I want to ultimately build on. There are a couple of people here. I'm going to do a quick couple of introductions. Does everyone know Nick Wilson? He spoke earlier. Okay, so Nick is my guiding hand on a day-to-day basis when I need a sanity check in a media company. Morgan in the front here. Morgan does our MoneyWeb TV channel. Next is Carolyn. Carolyn does our e-commerce. And general, I don't know how we would survive without her. Next to that, Mareka is our front-end dev. She's all the way up from Mossel Bay. If you're ever looking for front-end dev or anything along those lines, she's a fantastic resource to bounce things off. Paul at the back there is actually head of e-learning for Wits University in the health sciences faculty. But I think the thing about this presentation has always been that we become so excited about our tech that we forget that we actually have to do business with people. And I want to start this off with an interesting exercise. How many of you guys have done any business today? You done? Okay, that's excellent. I mean, I think it's really encouraging. I mean, I think often I come to these presentations and we end up standing up front here and people talk at an audience and nobody actually walks away with any real business being done. We kind of look at each other and say, well, the person standing up front knows far more than everybody else in the audience, and therefore they're going to guide us and give us the stunning piece of insight that's going to help our business kickstart. And I think the reality is that we need to start talking to each other. We need to start doing business with each other. Because if you're going to get any startup out the door, it doesn't matter how good your tech is, it doesn't matter how fantastic your PowerPoint is. Reality is business gets done with people. So I thought I'm going to start this off with me giving you something. But there's a proviso to it. If you want anything from me, you have to connect with me on social media. So if you go and find me on LinkedIn, it's Mark with a C, M-A-R-C, at MoneyWeb for the email, or Mark Ashton on LinkedIn, or ZA Mark Ashton on Twitter. And I'm going to start this off by actually giving some stuff away. Anybody got a startup that wants some advertising? Okay, perfect. Any of you, you drop me an email? I'll give you 10 grand's worth of banner advertising on MoneyWeb. Okay, mark at moneyweb.co. Any of you guys got any video content that you want to, nicely put together video content talking about your business? Okay, cool. You can mail Morgan, M-O-R-G-A-N, at moneyweb.co, and she's going to give you a little bit of a punt on her platform. Any of you painfully shy and would love to know a little bit about selling? Cool, okay. Mail me, and we've got a sales course that we developed. Again, it's Mark at MoneyWeb. I'll give you the course is about $1,400 or $1,500, but you ask for it, I'll give it to you. And I think the whole point of this exercise has been, this is not me just kind of standing up here and giving, I'm not Oprah Winfrey, I promise. Okay. The purpose of this is to start a bidirectional communication. And the thing about this is going to be that you're going to start reaching out to me. I think the thing that you often have is that somebody stands up here, we're going to go to tea after this, we're all going to be too scum to go and talk to each other. And the reality is we all need each other, and we all need it in our ecosystem to get our businesses out the door. And hopefully by going out and putting something out into the ecosystem, you guys see some value out of it. You contact me, we can start an ongoing relationship. And I think that this is how business actually gets done in the real world. And my presentation is going to be about 3 startups that we've incubated over the last probably 3 years, Nick, 2 years? Wealthy ever after? Yeah, okay, call it 2 years. So we were listed on the JSE for 20 odd years. We're a media group. So does anyone know MoneyWeb, by the way? Maybe that's probably good. Okay. So MoneyWeb was listed on the JSE up until 2 months ago. It had been listed in the dot-com boom 1998. It founded in 1998, listed up until 2017, August 22nd. And it was really interesting. I mean, we were probably from time to time depending on when you looked, we were one of the smallest businesses listed on the JSE. But we had a bit of cash, so people were constantly coming to us and saying, "Please invest in our business. Please tell us how to incubate us, give us startup capital, all those fine things." And we end up seeing a hell of a lot of business plans along the way. And what was really interesting is there's a lot of demand for money. We all want capital. We all want things to get us our businesses out the door. But it's actually not money that most people need. And I always use the analogy, and for some reason people always come to you and say they want $2 million. I don't know where that number comes from, but $2 million seems to be the stock standard answer on the business plan. And I always say, $2 million it's like taking a £2 million Porsche and parking it in your driveway. Anybody here, I don't know if anyone in the driveway, anyone in the room can take a £2 million Porsche and put it in their driveway right now. But if you've ever tried to run a £2 million Porsche, it's hell of expensive. And if you're putting it on credit, that credit adds up very, very quickly. As some background, the venture capital industry, anyone ever successfully raised money from a venture capitalist? That's not friends, fools, or family. Okay, so venture capital in South Africa is very much a myth. Anyone who thinks that they're going to raise money through a VC, I can pretty much tell you, you're smoking your socks. Average size of a VC deal in South Africa is about 7 million rand. You effectively need to be post-revenue. You need to have pretty much proven your business case, existing clients. You're not going to get VC. And in fact, it's really interesting. It's actually cheaper to list your business on the AltX than it is to get venture capital in South Africa. It's the most bizarre thing, and it's something we just have a very weird ecosystem. It's too expensive to go and raise capital. There's some exciting things that are happening now with Section 12J, where there's some money available to go and invest in startups. But anybody who thinks that they're going to go and get startup capital I think you'd be pushing your luck if you kind of working on a business plan that's going to raise capital in South Africa. So then it says, well, what are the other options? And I want to take you through 3 of them that we've looked at over the last 3 years. The first was a video production business. They had gone to Endeavour, and Endeavour had said we'll put some money in. It was never going to be enough to get them out the door. These guys had each of them had about 30 odd years worth of experience in video production. They gave us a business plan. We thought that's very exciting, but all the promises in the world, we're really not sure that we can get this out the door. And when that deal started out, they put 5 million rand on the table. That was what they thought equity in their business was worth. Now, bear in mind, it's a startup. It has nothing. It's got plenty of experience there, but it certainly doesn't have a real-world proven business case. In video production, if anyone's ever been involved in video production, it's commoditized to the death. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how creative you are. It probably costs you. Everyone can do video production with the right kind of people mix. So we say, okay, well, this is interesting, and we know we need video as part of our ongoing strategy. And instead of actually buying that business, we effectively said, cool, come on board, we'll contract you for a period of time. You can play with our resources. We will go and use our sales team to see and really go out there and test it, because they didn't have a sales team to start with. They didn't have back office support. There were 2 people with passion and promises and all of these things, and we still work with them. But we were able to go and say, all right, look, we think that what you've got here is an interesting business model. We don't think that there's necessarily a case for us to put 5 million into it. But what we will do is we will go and say, let's incubate this inside of our own structures. We'll kick in where we think we can put in, so it'll be back office support, it'll be sales. We would be able to use a MoneyWeb website to go and push out content. And it was really interesting to go and say, will this work? And, like most startups, it didn't work. That's me being completely brutal. It did not work. What it did discover, though, was that inside of MoneyWeb, we found that we had capacity to build a video production team. We actually did an event yesterday, live streamed the entire event. I think there were about 10,000 people or whatever who watched it, or 11,000 connections. It gave us a capacity that we didn't necessarily have 3 years ago. But that was an incremental process where we went through saying, we want to test the skill. So there wasn't really a business there. And that's the thing with a lot of these startups, is that there isn't necessarily a business, there isn't a market, but what it can do is it can fit in to a whole lot of other business processes that were out there. That then led to a second business that we looked at. It was two people we knew who were looking to develop a financial education initiative, so a learning program. And what they wanted to do was they needed video production to start with. And we said, okay, cool, well, hold on a second, we can do this. And same story, they brought us their business plan and they said 5% of equity was a couple million rand. No, it's not. And what we do, we took that business and we said, fine, what we'll do is we'll actually sink the production costs for you. We'll build this course. It was about 8 hours worth of financial education. You can take it out to market. You prove that you can sell it. It wasn't something that was core to us, but what we would do is start building that as we went along. And over time, we started to build this course out, and we tried it as a B2C play, and it was simply a flop. I mean, we probably did about 200,000 worth of sales, 200,000 rands worth of sales out of it. But in the bigger scheme of things, that was completely off the business plan. But if we'd gone and sunk the money up front, every one of us would have burnt. Here we were able to say, let's go and just incrementally try it out. What actually ended up coming out of that, well, there were two things that came out of that, was that we found there was actually a B2B play. And what was interesting was, when we're selling to consumers, we do about 600,000 or 700,000 uniques through our site every month. And there is no, you would think that we have somewhere in that audience a massive number of people who want financial education and will be prepared to pay 3,000 rand for a course. We found it's an impossible sale. And unless you have a dedicated specialist sales skill in there, they were not ever going to get that thing sold. They've tried different ways of doing the B2C play. Where it did work was that we were able to go and say, let's go and make this a B2B play. We do have a B2B audience. We have access to executives. We have access to people in financial, as the FD, or guys that are looking for BE type training. We never once took any equity in that business, but we were able to go and use that as an initial resource to be able to go and build out and go and take to market. But 2 years later, in fact, we now have a MoneyWeb campus, which is our online e-learning thing. And we took a lot of learnings out of that particular, it actually fed into a lot of our transactional stuff. Again, is there a proven business in that single Wealthy Ever After course? We don't necessarily think so, but what we have been able to do is go and kickstart our own e-learning business out of it. And the third example is quite fun. Digital media is a horrible game to be in. Anything that puts you up against Google, Facebook, Amazon, it really is not the world's easiest market to be in. And what we do know in that particular business is that we do have access to a significant number of people with high net worth individuals, and they're looking for investment products. And we've been kicking this thing around for about a year and a half, saying, well, how do we make this, how do you monetize that? Because it doesn't come out of selling banner ads. I can promise you that. You go great doing that. What it does do is say, all right, well, we want to start collecting some big data around our audience, profiling them, working on what financial products they use, et cetera, et cetera. But data is data. We can't. Can you monetize data? You can, but you've got to, it's very difficult to push it over the hump. And what we did do is we came across we were actually really fascinated to be on the other side of our. We want to put ourselves in a client's shoes. And we went to a small, unknown financial services provider. They were licensed. They had some nice products. Their big problem was they needed marketing. And we said, cool, we want to do an experiment with you. We want to go and take your products, your services, and we want to go and say, we're going to market them for you. I'm going to see how well we can do with it. We want to work out whether our data element works versus our banner advertising versus content marketing versus radio. And we started doing this over the last probably 9 months, 10 months. And what was really interesting, obviously we proved the case banner advertising is not the most effective marketing tool. And we started tracking each of the things. And what we did find was that we were able to move their assets under management just using our big data by 50, this week it'll be 50 million. The way we set up that particular deal was that for every 10 million we brought in, we would take 1% of equity in their business. There's no risk to anybody. If we get it wrong, we get it wrong. I mean, we have inventory to do. But we wanted to go and say, can we go and take existing products to market, take an existing brand, using our data and prove a case for it. Again, none of us has taken any risk in terms of equity. I think we've become very equity. We believe that there's value where there isn't necessarily value. Value comes out of there has to be a buyer and a seller. And I think the thing when you look at, you start valuing your startup is that you say, well, my startup's going to be worth X amount. You've got your J-curve, you've got all these fantastic things. So when somebody says, well, I'm prepared to put something into your business, it's never going to meet your expectations because you're expecting some evaluation 5 years down the line rather than a valuation that's here and now. And the thing is, most of the time the capital that you need isn't financial capital. It's access to networks, it's access to people. And that's why I come back to my original thing about business here. I'm doing a tech presentation at the moment without any tech because I think that it's something that we've forgotten when we want to get our business out the door is that we want to talk to each other. And we need to talk to each other and we need to sell to each other. And I think if I can leave you with one thought, sorry, I'm just trying to catch up a bit of time as well here. But if I can leave you with a thought is that we do actually need to start talking to each other. I can build the best tech in the world. I can have, we're a 20-year-old startup. We're still trying to work out how to monetize digital advertising. But ultimately, the thing that's kept us alive is the fact that we sell to real people. And, we do a lot of, the most amazing trend is that despite digital advertising growing everywhere around the world, most of the time, most people want offline advertising. They want to talk to real people. And this idea, when you look at the startups, is everybody says, and I think the presentation before made a very good point, was that build it and they will come does not work. Every single customer is an ongoing, it's dialogue. And it's part of the ongoing experience. And the ongoing experience is because they believe the brand that they talk to. And I really think that if you guys are going to go out there and you're going to say, I've got a startup, the startup has to solve a people's problem. I don't know how many other ways to say it. Your discovery was never started because there was a whole lot of money made available. Discovery solved a particular problem that R&B had. And this is the thing that we need to start getting into our heads, is that we're going to go out to tea, and there's a tea break, I think, in about 10 minutes' time. You guys need to start having discussions with each other. You need to have a discussion with me. I mean, I come here because I want to do business. I don't come here because I want to tell you my view on the world. I mean, that's what Twitter's for. Please follow me on Twitter. The point is, I want to have discussions. I want to create. I want you guys to tell me what your problems are and see if we can connect up. I mean, maybe has anybody got a burning problem, a client they can't access at the moment? Sorry, a client that you can't access, or an industry that you're trying to break into. Is that you?
I have a rather large problem with advertising.
Yeah.
And I run a sex toys business.
Sorry?
I run a sex toys business.
Okay, yeah.
And no mainline advertisers will actually take us. Have you got a solution?
Yeah, I mean, look, so, I mean, it will come down to, I mean, I don't know whether you've tried the influencer marketing thing and results?
Yeah, it works up to a point, but we can't, one of the big problems we're having is we can't advertise on Facebook.
Yep.
If you look at like the News 24s, the Sowetans, things like that, they kind of push us out.
Okay.
They're not interested in taking us. So we actually struggle to find big content sites with an audience that will actually let us advertise.
I think my mother actually applied for a job at your company. If it's the same company, it's a true story actually. Okay, so one of the things that actually so one of the ways to turn it around is, and I'll go back and I'll take another example. I spoke at a presentation about 3 or 4 months ago, and there was a lady. She does consulting, and she doesn't want to go and ever talk. She doesn't want to pick up the phone and talk to people. And in fact, her biggest gripe is she has to get in an Uber and go and talk to clients. And she said, well, how do I go and change that? I don't like talking to people. People don't like talking to me, and I don't like talking to people, but I really need to sell something to keep my business going. So, I mean, one of the ways to turn it around, I don't know, and like I said, I'm completely spitballing here at the moment, but is doing industry surveys. So, turn around and say, let's survey an industry. And it's not about... it's not about branding. It's not about that. It's saying, guys, I want to create an ongoing discussion with you. Do you want to receive information from me? A lot of the way, one of the things we find enormous success with is, and we never tell people who the advertiser is, but have you ever put, News 24 in fact had their annual, it wasn't News 24, it was Finweek before it went through its rebranding. Finweek actually used to do an adult sex survey. And it was all about what were the vices that the executives in South Africa particularly had, and it was a very, very popular insert. And the way they did it was when they surveyed the audience, said, are you interested in contributing to this survey? There's no branding attached to it, but what it will give you, it'll give you first name, surname, email address, age and demographic that you fall into. And it was interesting in that particular survey that when they started it, I think 30% of the respondents were women. By the time they got to the last survey that they ran, it was pretty much 50-50. And which brands do you recognize? Is it Lollipop Lounge versus Lola Montez? And it's a way to turn it around and say, this is a topic that people want to talk about, and you want to take out the sleaze element to it if you want to use it. But everyone around you knows it and participates in some way, shape, or form. And you can go and you can kind of go around the thing and say, well, how many people? If I give you an anonymous survey and there's 30 people in the room, and say, guys, I want you to go and fill in the survey for me. That would be one of the ways that I would turn it around, and I can guarantee that at least half the people will probably. And if there's an incentive for it, 5,000 Rand voucher. For me to go and participate in the survey, I think that there's an opportunity. People will participate. Branding is not everything in a particular advertising segment. Other question, challenge, thought? It's a good question. I'm thinking it over in my head. Come, guys, anything? Problem, challenge, client?
I run I guess you could say, controversial online publication.
Okay.
And one of the biggest sticking points that I have in terms of advertisers, so we'll basically during the tea break,
Okay.
is it's very male orientated, and most brands or companies don't want to get involved because of the edgy, this is actually the word that they use, content. So how do you think there's a way for me to, because I know the audience is there, and the audience is not going to get a negative connotation to the brand just because they are on there, because the audience already likes my
The content,
brand.
yeah.
So how do you think I can reach that wall?
I don't know if you guys, I don't know how many of you in marketing, but there's a brand that used to be called Lokshan Culture. Lokshan will go back probably goes back about 20 odd years. And at the time, they had no money for branding. People didn't recognize that you can't go and compete against what would have been Adidas or whatever the popular brands at the time were. And they actually spent a lot of time using musicians, for instance, and they were taking the brand out and they were representing the brand. And you obviously, if you have an audience, you have brand ambassadors that will take it out for you. And playing off that audience, and again, you don't have to do, I think sometimes when you look at branding, like we run a website, we have 12 million unfilled impressions every month. There's not necessarily the idea of throwing things into branding is not necessary. You can be far more tactical about it by going and saying, guys, you've got a network. It's a closed network. It's an intimate network, if you like. But what I need you to do is I need you to go and engage your audience in one way, shape, or form. To go and say to me, I want to grow this audience and make it demystify a lot of what's out there. Again, you come back to the sex industry. I mean, what did Lollipop Lounge, not Lollipop Lounge, teasers. I mean, it was done. It was a brand that ultimately, if you go into a teaser, I can guarantee you that the audience is not all male anymore. People have demystified it over many years, and Lolly Jackson made it. Lolly, for all his faults, made it one of those things where people would go and say, I'm actually proud to go there. It's not that I am trying to make it sleazy. I mean, Lolly will always tell you the story whenever he got caught speeding on a Sunday, he would tell you he was on the way to church. So he became this idea, he created this persona that represented an industry that was, to some degree, sleazy, but has ultimately been able to go and say, I've got ambassadors who do believe what I do and will go out there and represent me. You didn't see, I mean, apart from, yes, you'll have the billboard stuff, but a lot of it's word of mouth. It's by engaging the audience and making it worthwhile that ultimately made that brand as strong as it was. Okay, anything that doesn't involve sex at the moment.
So I'm trying to gamify reading, but in a way that focuses on fun, less on education, but actually focuses on fun and focuses on, the target market would be like 7 to 14.
Yeah.
Kind of want to put it 7 to 18. The other issue is where the target market is. But I focus on actually getting them to play the game, but also engage in reading. And I did a crowdfunding campaign and everything, but the issue I'm having is actually getting conversions, actually telling people, hey, it's a good idea, but like also fund me so I can actually get it out there.
I mean, who is the target market? Who makes a buying decision for it?
See, that's the issue, is that it will appeal to the kids, but the parents are the ones with the money. So it would actually need to be the parents. It would have to be the parents.
So I mean, there's two things. I mean, okay, maybe give me a little bit more color. I mean, what does it cost? What's the investment from a parent's perspective?
Well, the game would probably cost between, depending, it's probably about 300 Rand, 400 Rand.
And it's ready to go now?
No, it's not.
How far are you?
Oh, like a few years. So, sorry, what I'm actually trying to do is get funding to be able to fund it.
Yep.
But I'm going through crowdfunding because I believe that it's best if I have community involvement in it, so that, because I don't have all the answers, so I want the community involved so that I can actually make it so that it actually helps people.
So I mean, I think the thing with crowdfunding, I mean, what's the experience? I mean, what platforms? What's your experience been like?
So this is actually my first crowdfunding campaign. It's going horribly.
Okay.
And I'm using Indiegogo.
Okay.
And I'm asking for $100,000, which is quite a lot. And it's not going well.
So I mean, one of the things that I would say, I mean, $100,000 is, excuse the French, but it's a shitload.
Yeah.
You really are going to battle, and I say, remember, particularly if you're starting off with a South African audience, you need to give people a hurdle that they can get over. If it's too far down the line, I mean, I go onto a crowdfunding site and I see the thing is too far, the target's never going to be reached. There's no enthusiasm to go there and do it, and you need to build a whole lot of enthusiasm around. And the reality is that you're one person. You need some kind of champion around this to drive it. I mean, you could go to a business and say, guys, get every one of your employees to contribute to this, and I'll give you the game for free. But I think you also need so there's a lady called Nikki Bush. If you go and find her on Twitter, I don't know if you know her.
No.
So Nikki's incredibly influential in that space. I think it's BUSCH, if my memory is right. Go and talk to her. She's she will at least give you some pointers around it. She's written a couple of books, plays quite actively in the remedial and special. And again, I'll come back. Paula's played in the remedial and special education space for the last 20 odd years. She's an influencer in that space. Go and talk to her, see if she's got other recommendations for it.
Yeah, definitely.
But narrow down who your target market is as well. I mean, I always say that in one of my sidelines, I try and I'm involved in a handbag business for all sorts of weird reasons. But it's one of the cool. I think that the two girls who run it have got a fantastic story.
Yeah.
I think that they're just the unluckiest entrepreneurs out there. They're so close. They will eventually crack it. But we were talking about who their target market is, and often they will say, well, it's women. And I would actually argue, I bought 3 or 4. In fact, plus some for work. I've probably bought 6 of these handbags. And the thing about it is they make it easy. They go and they say, well, this is what your girlfriend, or this is what your person at work is going to, somebody that you work with is going to want, or your client, or whatever it is. I'll make it straightforward for you. And so actually the audience, and they were going to do a push for Valentine's Day. The audience is actually guys. And the guys will pay $1,000 because they don't know any better to pay $500 for the freaking handbag. But that is what, again, you need to narrow down who you're selling to. And that's one of the experiences that I've had with something like that. But I think as a parent to kids, like, I feel guilty because I don't have time to go and make sure that my kid reads. I mean, in fact, reading is my kid's single biggest challenge at the moment because he sits on YouTube the whole time. And yes, it'll make him a fantastically smart kid at some point, but he's actually got to read just so that he can pass, so that he can prove that he's a fantastically smart kid. So, maybe the target market is, and I don't know the answer, but maybe the target market is guilty parents. But then you got to say, well, my marketing, my messaging is guilty parents, and I want to make them aware that there's this tool out there for $300 or whatever the number is, and it's going to be rolled out in the next 6 months. Whatever, you got to give them a time frame. You got to say, this is the client, this is the target market, and be quite specific about it, and then go after it.
Yeah, thanks. No, that's great. I've decided to re-strategize, think around it. So, thank you. Thanks.
Any others before I wrap up, so you can guys? Okay, guys, it's like I said, this is my 30 minutes of fame. I really expect you guys to network and talk to each other. And I don't have the answers for everything, but I hope that at least I give you a little bit of an alternative consideration. I believe, is it tea now? If there's tea, please maybe take that as the focus to go out and talk to people. It's really about talking to and doing business. Tech is great, but tech takes you so far, people is going to push you over the line.